Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we delve into the golden glow of Nubia, where fire and hammer, spirit and sweat turned the earth's ore into treasures fit for kings and queens. The story begins not in a palace nor in a market, but in the heartbeat of the desert, a place where the Nile bends and the sand runs rich with secrets. Nubia, the land between the first and sixth cataracts, was a kingdom of contrasts: burning sun and flowing river, hard stone and soft gold, divine rituals and human endurance. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the faint clang of hammer on anvil echoing against sandstone cliffs. The air is thick with smoke from charcoal pits. Inside a small mud brick workshop, a young apprentice fans the flames until the furnace roars. Before him lies a crucible, glowing like the heart of a star. This is the world of the Nubian goldsmith. Here, gold was not only wealth, it was a mirror of the sun, a sacred metal believed to carry divine essence. Each bead, each amulet, each crown was more than ornament. It was prayer, memory, and power shaped by human hands. But beauty often hides struggle. Behind every shining bracelet and royal diadem was a craftsman hunched over in sweltering heat, lungs filled with smoke, fingers blistered and cut. Gold's brilliance came at a cost paid in sweat, patience, and sometimes even life. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Tonight, we will wander into the furnaces of Nubian workshops, meet the royal patrons who demanded perfection, trace the jewelry whose patterns spoke in symbols, and sit with the queens who wore gold as both crown and prayer. But first, let the old caravan driver tell us about the gold itself. Deep under the earth, guarded by spirits of the mountain, lay veins of the ore, untouched since the world was young. At Kerma and other mines, men toiled with pick and shovel, hauling up rocks to build pyramids of waste while searching for nuggets pure. For the Queen Mother, great and good, Nada el Fatai, a day's journey south of here, her son, the king, awaits. His name echoes with power, yet his face holds worry. For years, he's dreamed of a queen consort, one to match his own dark skin and kinky hair, one to rule beside him fairly. But none of the kingdoms to the north have offered up their daughters. Not until the pharaoh Akhenaten sent word that he, too, sought a Nubian bride. In the royal treasury, chests overflow with gold. Not enough gold. The king seeks pieces to rival the sun, to show the pharaoh that Nubia, too, can raise up jewels fit for a god. He summons the master goldsmith, Yusuf, a man so renowned, they say his works could stop a king's heart or start a queen's war. Yusuf enters, head bowed before the king, for he knows the royal burden of expectation. When the king is gone, Yusuf gathers his tools. First, a lump of purest gold, then charcoal, made by a special process to burn at just the right temperature, along with salt for flux and a hammer to shape the metal. Now, to melt the gold, he must make a fire hotter than a pharaoh's temper. As the gold glows, Yusuf thinks of the dangers ahead, not only the searing heat, but the risk of impurity, of failing the king, of bringing shame on himself and all Nubian goldsmiths. With steady hands, he draws out the glowing metal, letting it cool slightly before hammering it flat. Again and again, he shapes the metal, his muscles aching, his arms growing tired. Days turn into weeks as Yusuf works, eating little, sleeping less. For the king's jewels must be ready by the time of the queen's arrival. Finally, with one last touch, he finishes the piece, placing it in a leather pouch. Inside, nestled on a bed of red cloth, are 3 golden ornaments: a diadem for the queen, a necklace for the king's mother, and a set of bracelets for the princess, each piece imbued with Yusuf's hopes and prayers for Nubia. Will the king be satisfied? Will the queen treasure her jewels? Or will the pharaoh scorn Nubian gold? Find out next time, only on Under Baobab Skies. Remember to follow if you haven't already. Until next time, sleep well and dream of gold beneath the baobab. By the end of this part, you'll understand why the life of a Nubian goldsmith, though surrounded by beauty, was also marked by relentless heat, danger, and pressure. Picture the dawn over Napata, capital of Kush. The sun is still low, but the desert is already warming. Goldsmiths rise early, for the fire must be tended before the day grows too hot. A boy fetches water from the Nile, another gathers charcoal, while the master selects a small nugget of raw gold, turning it in his hands as if weighing not its mass, but its potential. His name is Akaru, and he is preparing for his most important job yet, creating a ceremonial necklace for Queen Amina-Nerinus. A pharaoh whose name means Amani-Ra is pleased. But gold is a fickle mistress. It needs coaxing, hours of patient tending to transform from rock to finery. First, she must be softened, made malleable. For this, the air in the furnace must reach 1070 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead. And it's here that our story really begins. As the fire is stoked, air is pushed through leather bellows, the flames brightening to white heat. The gold is placed inside, and soon it softens, then melts, its surface rippling like honey. The boy's eyes widen. To him, it looks like captured sunlight. But to the master, it is dangerous work. One slip of the tongs, one spark, one splash, and molten gold could scar for life. He remembers his own first time at the crucible, how fear had gripped him as he peered inside, not knowing what to expect. At that moment, the boss had thrown back his head and laughed, a sound like crackling flames. "Do not be afraid," he had said, his face creased with smiles, "for fire is our friend, and gold is generous to those who respect her." Then, taking a deep breath, he added, "But she can also be cruel." He dipped a cloth into the crucible and lifted it out slowly. The burning question hung in the air. Could he do it? Akaru looks into the glowing heart of the furnace. He sees a boy with deft hands and steady nerves, a man who has brought order to chaos, and an old man who has learned the secrets of the flame. "Be not afraid," he whispers, "for fire is our friend, and gold is generous to those who respect her." Then he turns back to the necklace. First the larger pieces, then the fine filigree, each link a miniature work of art. Its pattern echoes the queen's royal cobra, a symbol of her divinity, and the lotus flower, representing the rebirth promised by the Nile each year. At the center, a single drop, not a gem, but more gold, painstakingly shaped to catch the light like a captive star. It is not just an ornament, it is a talisman, a declaration of wealth, power, and eternal life. The sun climbs higher, the air thickens, the desert shimmers, and a buzzard circles overhead, looking for easy prey. But inside the workshop, the only sounds are the hiss of cooling gold and the quiet scrape of tools. When the first rays of sunlight hit the finished necklace, it glitters, dazzling and deadly. No queen would dare wear it without an escort. But there is little time for admiring the product. The finished goods must be delivered to the queen's treasury and the accounts recorded before sunset. Each piece of jewelry was logged meticulously, weighed against eternal standards to ensure the pharaoh received her full measure of gold. If any ounce was found wanting, the shortfall came out of the goldsmith's pay. This last bit was the bane of Akaru's existence. It didn't matter how many times he did it, he never quite got used to the meticulous record-keeping. Still, he knew better than to complain. In the kingdom of Kush, which encompassed much of modern-day Sudan, being a goldsmith was a highly respected profession. In fact, the very sight of their workshops near the royal palace testified to their importance. They enjoyed social status. They were paid well. And because they worked with metals, they were considered closer to the gods than most. They were even allowed certain luxuries like palm wine, a sweet liquor forbidden to slaves and commoners alike. That being said, there were drawbacks to the profession. For instance, when the heat of the day was at its peak, the smiths were forced to cool off in the shade, while the overseers continued working to avoid paying extra for expedited deliveries. It wasn't uncommon for them to spend entire days in the shade, listening to the incessant buzzing of flies and fighting the urge to fall asleep. But that was nothing compared to hammering, the second crucial skill of the goldsmith. This was the part he loved the most, shaping the stubborn metal into something beautiful. Yet it was also where mistakes were most costly. The heavy sledgehammers rang out across the narrow streets of Napata, the sound echoing between high mud brick walls. Here, in the cramped alley, there was little room for error. A misjudged blow could dent the wall or crack the roof. Once the metal cooled, mistakes like these couldn't be fixed without starting over from scratch. To hammer properly, the goldsmith had to be in tune with the metal, feeling its temperature, its resistance, its temperament. Thin sheets were pounded for hours until they glistened like pools of mercury. Now, the overseer demanded finer, smoother. The queen will wear nothing less than perfection. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Now, imagine that rhythm in the heat of the day, sweat dripping into the eyes, hands shaking with fatigue. While the overseer demanded finer, smoother, the queen will wear nothing less than perfection. Once the shaping was done, the gold went to the queen's court jeweler, who added the finishing touches, clasps, settings for precious stones and protective chains. Only then did the completed item get plated, perhaps with silver or copper, or sometimes even mercury. That elusive substance that looked like silver, but was actually poison. These steps, like hammering, were done by hand, often in cramped, dark workshops with poor ventilation. Gold alone was soft, so alloys were needed. Copper, sometimes even mercury, to bind or gild. The smoke rising from the crucible entered lungs, burning the throat, coating the chest. Many goldsmiths aged quickly, their backs bent, their breathing labored, their eyes watering. Outside, the desert shimmered with golden light. Inside, everything was darkness and dust. Beauty outside, suffering within. Yet, despite all this, young apprentices longed for the trade. Why? Because to be a goldsmith was to be close to power. Gold was the metal of kings, the jewel of queens, the offering for gods. And to shape it was to touch eternity, even if it meant burning your hands in the process. So now you understand why, even with all their prestige, the Nubian goldsmiths often dreamed of another life. Maybe one where the sun didn't beat down so relentlessly, where the air didn't burn their throats, where the sky wasn't filled with the clang of hammers. But perhaps, just perhaps, they secretly liked it that way. After all, to be a goldsmith was to be part of something bigger than themselves. Their creations would adorn the most powerful woman in the land, become part of her legend, and who knows, maybe one day some wandering archaeologist would unearth their humble necklace, marvel at its intricate design, then display it proudly in a museum. Or maybe that was wishful thinking. The Nubian goldsmith's day stretched longer than most. Once the furnace roared to life, there was no stopping until every piece of ore had been melted, hammered, or filed. The heat was relentless, not only from the sun, but from the flames, that roared as if they had their own hunger. Imagine a man bent over a small crucible, sweat dripping onto the earth, hands trembling as he adjusts the coals with iron tongs. His apprentice works the bellows, arms aching from pumping air. Hours pass, yet the task remains incomplete. The metal demands patience, and the master demands precision. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky, the master smith paused, not from exhaustion, but from hunger. He knew the next bite of bread would taste like ashes in his mouth. But eating late at night was impossible. How could he sleep with the furnace burning? How could he rest while the gold grew cold? The fire must be tended, the bellows must breathe. And so he ate standing, watching, working. In this world of gold and fire, the rhythms of life were dictated by the furnace. Meals were taken quickly between adjustments of the bellows and the careful tending of the flames. Sleep was a luxury earned at the end of a long night, when the work was done and the embers glowed softly, ready to be buried until the next day. The goldsmith lived with the fire, and the fire demanded constant companionship. The Nubian goldsmith's world was one of intense heat and even hotter stakes. Mistakes were costly. If the gold cracked while being hammered, if a bracelet snapped while cooling, or if an impurity remained in the final shine, the smith carried the blame. There was little room for forgiveness when the piece was destined for royalty. Some were punished with lashes, others simply cast out, their reputation ruined. The king's goldsmith had to be the best, for the king's wealth was a reflection on the king himself. And should the king's gold tarnish, who would bear the blame? The king, of course. And so the master goldsmith worked tirelessly, fueled by a potent mix of fear and ambition. Fear of the king's wrath, yes, but also the ambition to excel, to create pieces so exquisite they would bring honor to his craft, to his family, and perhaps one day to himself. Each hammer blow was a prayer, each file stroke a plea. They prayed to the gods of the forge, to the spirits of the metal, and to their own ambitions. Yet, even in failure, there was pressure to continue. For every mistake meant more hours at the forge, more nights of hammering by lamplight, until the perfection demanded by nobles was achieved. And perfection, in this world, was not optional. It was survival. The old Nubian tales tell of a time when the pharaohs themselves descended from sky gods, bringing fire and wisdom to a people living in darkness. And what did these sky gods value above all else? Gold, for it symbolized the sun, eternal and radiant. Gold was more than a metal. It was a conduit to the divine. It was the essence of wealth and power. The goldsmith's hands were rough, not from manual labor, but from the constant friction of shaping the very essence of the sun. Every line on his palms told a story of molten metal, every crease a tale of cooling gold. These were not just hands that shaped metal, they were instruments of magic, transforming raw or into objects of worship. And the secrets of this magic were passed down, not through blood, but through years of toil. When the son of a goldsmith looked to follow in his father's footsteps, he did not inherit the skill. He had to earn it. He had to spend countless hours at the anvil, learning the language of the metal. It was a harsh apprenticeship, one that tested not just the boy's skills, but his patience, his endurance, and his spirit. For gold was a fickle mistress. She demanded respect, obedience, and unwavering attention, and she offered her favors to few. Many a young apprentice had left the trade, cursing the very sight of a crucible. Yet those who stayed, who learned to read the signs, who understood the temper of the metal, they became masters in their own right. Their names were whispered in all, their creations sought after by kings and queens. But how do you become a Nubian goldsmith? Through bloodline or trade school? Not really. More like through sheer stubbornness. The craft was brutal, thankless, and all-consuming. Why would anyone choose this life? Because somewhere between the stifling air and the blinding light, something extraordinary happened. The goldsmith found his purpose. It wasn't about status or riches. It was about the creation, the transformation of base metal into exquisite pieces of art. It was about becoming one with the fire, about reading the whispers of the metal, about breathing life into cold, hard ore. This was the goldsmith's calling, his obsession, his curse, and his pride. Once you learn the ways of the goldsmith, you can never truly leave. The fire takes hold of your heart, the metal becomes your muse, and the rhythm of the hammer your heartbeat. So, if you're considering a career in goldsmithing, be prepared. It's not just a job, it's a way of life. It's a dance with the elements, a conversation with the spirits of the ore, and a commitment to a legacy that stretches back to the days when pharaohs walked the earth. Now let's talk about the sounds of the Nubian goldsmith's workshop. Imagine this, you're sitting in a bustling marketplace. Vibrant colors assault your eyes, merchants call out their wares, and the air is thick with the scent of spices and roasting meat. Suddenly, you hear it, a rhythmic hissing sound, like air escaping a leather bag, followed by the sharp clang of metal on metal. Intrigued, you turn towards the sound and find yourself in front of a mud brick workshop. Peeking inside, you see a bearded goldsmith at work. As you watch, mesmerized, the scene around you fades away. You're no longer in the marketplace. You're transported to another time, another place, all thanks to the sounds of the Nubian goldsmith at work. This isn't mere background noise. It's a symphony of labor, a testament to the dedication and skill of these ancient artisans. The symphony begins with the hiss of water quenching hot metal. Can you picture it? A red-hot piece fresh from the furnace, its surface shimmering like a burning coal. Then, plop, it hits the water and the hissing starts. A quick release of steam as the metal cools rapidly. The sound is almost musical, like a high note played on a flute. Then comes the clink of chisels etching intricate patterns on a golden bracelet. Each tap of the chisel against the anvil is crisp and clear, like a xylophone in a distant orchestra. And then the dull thud of mallets striking gold sheets. This isn't the sharp ring of a blacksmith's hammer, but a softer, more measured sound. It's the bass of the composition, grounding the higher notes and giving the rhythm a heartbeat. Together, these sounds create a soundscape that's both mesmerizing and nostalgic. It's a reminder of a time when skilled artisans crafted exquisite pieces by hand, when each object was a testament to human skill and creativity. For the apprentices, these sounds were their schooling. They memorized every strike, every hiss, until the rhythm became second nature. To learn the craft was to live it, body and soul, in endless cycles of heat, dust, and sweat. So let me ask you, what do you hear when you think of a Nubian goldsmith? Is it the hiss of cooling metal, the clink of chisels, or the thud of the mallet? Share your thoughts below. And hey, if you're enjoying this series, don't forget to support us. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for listening. By the time the sun began to fall behind the cliffs of Nubia, the goldsmith's body was already aching. His arms throbbed from hammering, his eyes burned from smoke, and his back stiffened from hours bent at the forge. Yet the day was far from finished. The last stage of work was always the most dangerous. The polishing, a piece that looked flawless in the firelight, could reveal cracks or blemishes under the softer glow of the evening lamp. The craftsman would rub the gold with stone powder, sometimes even fine sand, until the shine caught the eye. If the shimmer pleased, the goldsmith breathed a quiet sigh of relief. If not, the process began again. Now, the finishing touches are important, because, as we know, you can't see defects in metals with the naked eye. So how do you tell if something is perfectly crafted? Well, when the master is done, he will send the apprentice out into the daylight to see if there are any flaws, because direct sunlight can actually reflect off of small scratches and imperfections that cannot be seen inside the workshop. It's a clever quality control system, and after all these years, the old goldsmith has become quite famous throughout Nubia. Kings and queens send him rare gold and precious stones to craft into magnificent pieces. But what they don't see is that he does not enjoy the luxury of an easy life. In fact, he works constantly and desperately, hammering away like a madman, barely sleeping, eating and drinking, only pausing to sharpen his tools on a wet stone, then back to the grindstone, trying to finish a commission before the new moon. And why is he in such a hurry? Well, that is because of the high cost of living in El Quran. Even the king's treasurer doesn't pay well enough to keep up with inflation. And as the goldsmith grows older, he worries that his hands may soon be too weak to hammer at all. And now, a huge order has come in for a series of golden diadems, which must be finished in time for the Queen Mother's birthday celebration. There is a giant pile of gold ready to be shaped, and the goldsmith begins with the simplest pattern first, while saving the most elaborate designs for later. Now, each band is different, so he must keep track of where each one belongs. And as he works, he hums a tuneless song, trying to relax and steady his hands. Each piece is made to measure for one of the many wives of the aging king, and the patterns are based on the personal iconography of each one. Some represent animals, others depict plants, and some show the royal symbols of each woman's homeland. And each one needs to be stamped with the official royal seal, too, adding extra steps to the process. After making the basic shape, the goldsmith files the edges smooth, smoothing them down until they are thin enough to bend without breaking. Then he begins the delicate work of hammering, chasing, and repoussé. First, he heats the gold until it glows red hot, then places it on his hard stone work surface and hammers lightly, making sure not to warp the shape. When he is satisfied, he turns his attention to filling the recessed areas next, which is the part that requires the most skill. Here, he uses a variety of tools, including a set of special chisels, punches, and a variety of other hand tools. Using a small hammer, he taps these into place, hammering gently until the tips lock into the gold, then pressing downward, forcing the metal outward. He repeats this all along the length of the tiara, taking care to work evenly, alternating sides and working around curves. And as he works, the sparks fly. He pauses only to dip his brush into a bucket of water, dabbing away the sweat on his brow. Again and again, he presses the metal outwards, building up the design little by little. As the day wears on, the work progresses. The gold takes shape, and one tiara is finished, then another. Still, there are dozens more to go, and although the sun is setting now, the sky glowing red and orange over the distant desert hills, the goldsmith refuses to stop. He works by the light of a single oil lamp now, and the shadows grow long and twisted around him. When at last he lays his tools aside, he is surrounded by finished pieces. The air is thick with the scent of burnt oil, but he does not care. Looking around, he sees that there is still much to be done, but also that progress has been made. Some of the tiaras are ready for the final stages, and he picks one up, turning it over in his hands. First, he cleans it with a cloth, removing any fingerprints or blemishes. Then, he dips a small brush into a vial of liquid and carefully traces lines along the gold, highlighting the patterns. Once he is satisfied, he sets this aside and returns to the anvil, heating the next piece, readying it for the shaping. Now, the temperature of the furnace reaches 1200 degrees Celsius, and the goldsmith handles this hot metal with practiced ease. He holds it out over the anvil and hammers lightly to check its temperature, then returns it to the fire, adding more charcoal to make it hotter. This is the third and final heating, and he knows that once he shapes this, it will be permanent. So he lays his tools aside for a moment, standing back to admire his work. As the lamplight flickers, the metal glows, reflecting a twisted flame in its depths. He runs a finger across the surface, tracing the pattern he has made. It is good. Taking a deep breath, he begins to shape the metal. Now, as the moon climbs higher in the sky, the old goldsmith continues his work. The rhythmic ring of his hammer blends with the cricket's song, and as the hours pass, the pile of finished tiaras grows. Each curve and twist tells a silent story. Each curve and flourish a testament to the strength and skill of the craftsman. Slowly, methodically, he transforms molten metal into lasting treasures, imbuing each piece with a bit of his soul. The lamp sputters, casting long dancing shadows on the walls as the old goldsmith works late into the night. Though fatigue pulls at his bones, he pushes on, guided by the flickering flame and fueled by an unwavering determination. He is creating more than just gold here. He is crafting heirlooms that will adorn the heads of queens. Each tiara a miniature masterpiece, a silent poem in gold. With a final tap of his hammer, he finishes the last tiara, its intricate design shimmering softly in the dim lamplight. He steps back, his eyes heavy with fatigue, but shining with pride. Setting down his tools, he lets out a long sigh, the sound echoing the quiet rhythm of the night. Around him, the finished tiaras gleam like stars fallen to earth, each a tiny sun capturing the essence of Nubian royalty. In the stillness of the night, the old goldsmith finds a moment of peace. Despite the aches in his bones and the weariness in his heart, he feels a deep satisfaction. He has spent countless hours bending over his anvil, his hands roughened and calloused by the relentless work. But in the end, it has all been worth it. For each piece he has created is not just metal, but a work of art, a silent testament to his skill and devotion. As the first rays of dawn touch the horizon, the old goldsmith prepares for a new day. His hands, though weary, are steady. His eyes, though dimmed with age, still hold a spark of passion. For he knows that with each sunrise comes a new opportunity to create, to shape molten gold into exquisite works of art. Nubia's prosperity may wax and wane, but one thing remains constant: the legacy of the goldsmith. A legacy written in gold, passed down from generation to generation. And with that, let's fade out to the sounds of a Nubian lullaby, sung by the flickering light of a campfire, beneath the vast canopy of a star-studded night sky. The kingdom of Kush was more than desert cliffs and silent tombs. It was a world where gold became the lifeblood of politics, power, and prestige. Every nugget mined by sweating hands flowed upward toward palaces where kings and queens turned metal into authority. From this fertile heartland, merchants carried Kushite gold northward into Egypt, where it shimmered in temples dedicated to Ammon and adorned the bodies of pharaohs. To the south and west, traders took gold into the savannas, exchanging it for ivory, ebony, and cattle. Gold was more than wealth. It was a language, a way of shaping relationships across Africa and beyond. A Nubian caravan of traders, black men in linen tunics leading camels loaded with leather bags of gold, walking through desert dunes under the blazing sun. In return for their treasure, Nubian rulers welcomed foreign luxuries into their courts. Glass beads from the Mediterranean, incense from Arabia, and bronze tools from far-off lands all found their way into Meru and Napata. To rule Kush was to sit at the crossroads of the ancient world. Yet trade was not just about wealth. It was a delicate balance of diplomacy. Nubian kings knew that gold could buy alliances or invite enemies. Egypt looked south with hungry eyes, always aware that Nubia's mines were richer than its own. To control gold was to invite war, and so Kushite rulers learned to play politics as skillfully as any craftsman played the hammer. Inside the royal courts, decisions about trade shaped the destiny of the people. Which caravans would leave, which ports would open, and which rulers abroad would be gifted Nubian treasures. These were not small choices, but matters of survival. Goldsmiths toiled in heat and smoke, but the results of their labor echoed in halls of power. Thus, in the kingdom of Kush, every piece of gold carried a double weight. It gleamed with beauty, but also with the burden of politics. To wear gold was not only to display wealth, but to declare power, to whisper a message across deserts and rivers. Kush endures. We often think of gold as valuable, but to the people of Kush, it wasn't just a precious metal. It was a political tool, a way of life, and an instrument of power. From the earliest days of the kingdom, Kushite kings understood the value of gold, and they used it to build alliances, influence other kingdoms, and protect their own. Kush's gold rush started long before European explorers set foot in Africa. By the 10th century BCE, the Nubi, one of the Kushite ethnic groups, had established a kingdom along the Nile River in what is now Sudan. Their capital, Napata, was located near the Egyptian border, and from there, the Nubians extended their influence over vast territories. But why were the Nubians so successful? What made them stand out among the many kingdoms that dotted the ancient world? It all boiled down to one thing: gold. Kush was sitting on a literal gold mine. The region's wealth may have been legendary, and everyone from the Egyptians to the Greeks and Romans wanted a piece of it. For the Nubians, though, gold wasn't just a source of income, it was a way of life. They developed intricate systems for mining, purifying and trading the metal, and they used their expertise to forge powerful alliances. One of the most famous examples of Kush's gold diplomacy was their relationship with Egypt. In the 8th century BCE, the Kushite king Pi led his army north and conquered Egypt. He then established a new capital at Meru and ruled over a vast empire that stretched from the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. But Kush's gold didn't just stay in Egypt. It also flowed westward into the Sahara Desert and northward into the Mediterranean. Trading posts sprang up along the caravan routes and became centers of commerce and culture. At the height of the kingdom's power, merchants from Kush could buy anything from elephant tusks and slaves in the west to Roman glass and textiles in the north. Gold was not the only commodity that Kush traded. However, the kingdom was also known for its ivory, leather, incense, and, surprisingly, its wine. Yes, you heard that right. Kush produced a type of red wine that was so popular in the Mediterranean that Greek and Roman writers raved about it. However, the true heart of Kush's economy and identity was gold. The metal was used not only for practical purposes like trade and currency, but also for symbolic ones. Kush's kings and queens wore gold crowns, necklaces, and bracelets, and they decorated their palaces with gold leaf and gold-plated statues. Gold was also used in religious ceremonies and rituals. In fact, one of the most important gods in the Kush religion was called Gold or Golden One. He was associated with the sun and was believed to be the source of all wealth and prosperity. But Kush's love affair with gold wasn't just about aesthetics or religion, it was also about power. As we mentioned earlier, gold was a key factor in Kush's ability to expand and thrive. By controlling the supply of gold in the region, the Nubians could make or break alliances, fund wars, and build impressive monuments. One of the most iconic symbols of Kush's golden age are the pyramids of Meru. Built between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE, these pyramids are not only beautiful to behold, but also a testament to Kush's wealth and engineering skills. In fact, the pyramids of Meru are unique in that they are the only major pyramids in the world that were built away from the Nile River. This is because the Kushite rulers deliberately chose to move their capital away from the Egyptian border in order to protect their independence. The pyramids served as tombs for the Kushite kings and queens, and they were filled with treasures such as gold, ivory, and exotic animals. Some of the pyramids were even decorated with paintings and carvings depicting scenes from daily life in Kush. But, unfortunately, Kush's reign over the gold trade didn't last forever. By the 4th century CE, the kingdom began to decline due to a combination of factors, including the depletion of gold reserves, the rise of new trade routes, and the weakening of local rulers. Still, Kush left behind a legacy that would influence the region for centuries to come. Its art, architecture, and religion would inspire later African kingdoms, and its riches would continue to lure treasure hunters and archaeologists alike. Today, visitors can explore the ruins of Kush's great cities and marvel at the beauty of its goldwork. The Kingdom of Kush reminds us that Africa has a rich and fascinating history that predates European colonization. And it shows us that the continent's cultural heritage is just as valuable as its mineral resources. Perhaps one day we'll discover more about Kush and its golden legacy. After all, there are still many secrets buried in the sands of the Sahara. In the Kingdom of Kush, power was never silent. It was spoken through ceremony, through processions where drums thundered, incense curled into the sky, and golden ornaments caught the desert light. To rule was to perform, and every ritual was a stage where politics met spirituality. When envoys arrived from distant lands, they were not greeted with casual handshakes. Instead, they walked into great courts where carved columns rose like forests of stone. Priests chanted blessings, warriors lined the pathways, and the king or queen emerged in garments heavy with gold, cowrie shells, and fine linen. To outsiders, it was overwhelming. To Nubians, it was a reminder. The ruler was not just a human sovereign, but a bridge between gods and people. The Kingdom of Kush thrived in what is now Sudan, a land where the Nile River split into a vast delta, creating a landscape of islands and waterways. Imagine arriving at the court of Meru, the capital city, in the 2nd century CE. Your caravan has traversed the desert for weeks, laden with exotic goods from distant lands. As you approach the city, the heat shimmering in the distance, you see it, a majestic procession emerging to meet you. Elephant riders with golden, howdah-clad men and women in flowing white linen robes. Drummers beating tall wooden drums, and at the center, the king. He is adorned in golden jewelry, each ornament telling a silent story of his lineage and power. This is no ordinary welcome. It is a ceremony, a performance of power, a reminder of who is in control. And as you witness this spectacle, you understand that in Kush, being a ruler is more than a title. It's a role, a part one plays on a grand stage where every movement, every gesture echoes with meaning. Let's take a closer look at these grand entrances. What might seem like an ostentatious display of wealth and power actually serves a deeper purpose. Each ornament, each gesture is a message in itself. For example, the king's headdress might signify his connection to the gods, while the patterns on his robe could tell stories of his ancestors or victories. By understanding these symbols, the Nubian people reaffirm their identity and heritage. It's not just a performance, it's a shared experience that binds them together. But it's not just about internal unity. These ceremonies also serve as a warning to outsiders. Kush was a formidable power, and its rulers weren't afraid to show it. The very opulence that dazzled visitors could also intimidate them. It was a reminder that this kingdom, born in the heart of the desert, was not to be underestimated. Now, let's shift our focus to trade. Another important aspect of life in Kush. In the ancient world, trade wasn't just an economic activity, it was a cultural exchange, a way of building alliances and maintaining order. In Kush, trading partners often engaged in their own rituals, acknowledging the importance of the exchange. Caravan leaders might present gifts to local officials upon arrival, symbolizing their intent to trade peacefully. In return, they would receive official seals or documents granting them permission to buy and sell. These rituals not only facilitated trade, they fostered a sense of community among merchants and locals alike. Moreover, they served as a form of protection, a way of ensuring that all parties engaged in trade with integrity and respect. It was a reminder that while trade was vital for prosperity, it should be conducted with honor and fairness. Imagine the scene. You are a trader from Egypt, journeying into Kush in search of exotic goods. After weeks of travel, you reach the outskirts of Meroe and are summoned before the king. Entering the court, you see not only the king, but also priests and advisors adorned in ceremonial robes and jewelry. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation. Now comes the most critical part of the ritual. You must kneel before the king and offer your tribute, a symbolic gesture signifying respect and submission to the Kushite ruler. What you choose to offer matters. Perhaps you bring salt from the Egyptian mines or ivory from your travels inland. Maybe you have incense or precious metals. Whatever you choose, it's not just a gift, it's a statement. After presenting your gift, you wait. The king examines the offerings and, based on their quality and quantity, decides whether to grant you permission to trade. If he's pleased, he may accept your gift and issue a seal granting you access to the markets of Meroe. At that moment, you understand that trade here is more than a simple transaction. It's a ritual, a dance of respect and reciprocity between nations. A testament to the enduring legacy of the Kingdom of Kush. It's hard to overstate the importance of these rituals in the life of the Kingdom of Kush. They were the glue that held society together, the thread that wove together politics, religion, and daily life. But, as with any performance, there were those who sought to disrupt the harmony. Rival kingdoms, ambitious warlords, they all posed threats to the delicate balance of power. And when these challenges arose, the rituals of Kush took on a new urgency. The king, once the embodiment of stability, now donned armor and wielded weapons, transforming from a performer into a warrior. The priests, normally the conduits of peace, invoked divine blessings upon the army, turning prayers into battle cries. Even the bustling marketplaces became sites of strategy, with merchants and artisans discussing troop movements and potential alliances. All this was part of Kush's survival instinct, its ability to adapt and evolve while still respecting its traditions. It was a reminder that in the ancient world, as in our own, change was the only constant, and Kush, with its rich tapestry of rituals, was prepared to face whatever came next. In the realm of Kush, trade wasn't just about commerce. It was a communion, a merging of cultures as diverse as the goods they traded. Ivory from the south, gold from the east, incense, and spices from the far reaches of the known world all found their way to the markets of Meroe, and leaving Kush's borders, Nubian cloth, ironwork, and leather goods were highly sought after. The influx of ideas and customs wasn't confined to the marketplace. It seeped into homes, shaping everyday life. The aroma of frankincense mingled with the scent of desert flowers. New foods found their way onto tables, and vibrant fabrics adorned not just bodies, but walls and ceilings. It was a cultural mosaic, a testament to the interconnectedness of the ancient world. This fusion wasn't static. It evolved, adapted, and sparked innovation. Craftsmen incorporated new techniques, merchants developed novel trade routes, and scholars absorbed and shared fresh perspectives. This dynamic exchange was more than just a byproduct of trade. It was the essence of life in Kush, a continuous flow of cultural exchange. In the heart of the desert, a kingdom flourished, not just in gold and ivory, but in the vibrant colors of 1,000 stories. Our journey through the kingdom of Kush has been nothing short of extraordinary. We've witnessed the splendor of royal ceremonies, the intricate protocols of trade, and the profound impact of cultural exchange. No golden age lasts forever. In Kush, even the hum of the forges and the glitter of gold could not silence the harsh truths of time. By the later centuries, trade routes began to shift. Rivers carved new paths, and rival kingdoms rose to challenge the supremacy of Nubia. Caravans that once streamed through Kush now took detours to bypass its markets. Some roads became too dangerous, plagued by raiders, or swallowed by shifting sands. Traders adapted quickly, but for a kingdom built on gold and exchange, every diverted path felt like a thread being pulled loose from a tapestry. The arrival of new powers only deepened the struggle. To the north, Egypt and later Rome drew wealth away, while to the east, the rise of Axiom created a rival hub of trade. Kush, though proud and resilient, was caught in a web of competition. Its rulers still performed grand ceremonies, still blessed caravans with chants of Amun. But the golden glow had begun to dim. At first, the challenges were familiar. Nomadic raiders along the trade routes tested Kush's defenses. To the west, the kingdom of Oxum grew in power, stretching its influence across the Red Sea. But Kush had faced such trials before. Queens like Amanirenas had repelled invaders and secured the borders. Yet this time felt different. As the Roman Empire expanded, it absorbed Egypt into its vast domain. For Kush, which had long traded with Egypt, this change was a blow. Vital trade networks started to wither as Roman authorities imposed new taxes and tightened controls over goods flowing from the east. Within Kush, too, the familiar landscape was shifting. The Nile River, once a life source, began to change course. Floods that had nourished the land for generations started receding. Farmers watched in dismay as fields that had known only bounty turned to arid wastelands. Famine gnawed at the edges of the kingdom, testing the resilience of its people. Then there were the whispers from the gold mines. For centuries, these mines had been the bedrock of Kush's wealth, each nugget a testament to the kingdom's prosperity. But now, the veins of gold seemed to have run dry. Less gold meant less trade meant less prosperity. It was a cycle that threatened to pull Kush into the abyss of oblivion. Back in Kush, the changing times demanded new strategies. Rulers like Natakamani and her husband, King Erikamani, sought alliances beyond their borders. They reached out to the Roman Empire, hoping to forge a partnership that would safeguard trade. Their strategy was bold, sending embassies to Roman rulers, offering peace and promising prosperity. They wanted to turn the tide in Kush's favor. to weave new alliances that would protect their kingdom from the encroaching shadows. Yet the world outside Kush was shifting in ways they couldn't fully predict. As the Romans extended their reach across the Mediterranean, they brought with them new ideas, new technologies, and most significantly, a new religion. Christianity, which had started as a small Jewish sect in the heart of the Roman Empire, was now a force to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, in the east, a new power was stirring: the kingdom of Oxium. What began as a small trading post had evolved into a formidable kingdom. Under kings like Azana Axum, converted to Christianity and became a beacon for the new faith. Soon, Christian merchants fanned out across the Red Sea, reaching the shores of Kush. It was a clash of worlds. Two empires on the brink of transformation, each grappling with forces beyond their control. For Kush, this era was a crucible. The old ways, the traditions that had sustained them for generations, were being challenged like never before. Still, Kush held firm. Queens like Amenarinas and Amadeus continued to rule with wisdom and grace. They built temples, maintained trade, and defended their borders. Yet the strain was evident. Resources that had once flowed freely were now carefully rationed. The bustling markets of Meroe, once the pride of Kush, were quieter now, the air thick with uncertainty. But amidst the challenges, stories emerged that showcased the true essence of Kush. Tales of queens who defied odds, of victories against mighty foes, and of a civilization that had thrived where others had failed. These stories became more than just narratives. They were threads of identity, binding the people of Kush together in a shared heritage. They are here, these treasures of history, waiting to be discovered. Just as archaeologists unearthed the secrets of Kush, there are remnants of ancient African civilizations scattered across the continent, each holding pieces of the African narrative. There's the kingdom of Songhai, known for its wealth and scholarship. The remnants of the Benin Empire with its bronze masterpieces, and the echoes of the Zulu kingdom, famed for its military prowess. Each of these civilizations had its own golden age, its own unique contributions. Yet time, as it always does, brought challenges. Environmental shifts, internal strife, and external pressures led to transformations and, in some cases, the decline of these kingdoms. Meanwhile, in the heart of Africa, the Kingdom of Congo was experiencing its golden age. The Longo people, with their intricate wood carvings and vibrant cultures, had risen to prominence. As trade flourished, so did the arts. Carpenters crafted exquisite wooden figures, each one a masterpiece, a celebration of life and tradition. As the centuries rolled by, the dynamics of power across Africa started to shift. Coastal cities gained prominence as trade routes evolved. Places like Mogadishu, with its strategic location on the Indian Ocean, became hubs of commerce. Merchants from Arabia, India, and China found themselves in these African cities, eager to trade their exotic goods for the riches of the African interior. As we journey through the vast canvas of space and time, it's essential to remember that progress isn't always linear. There were setbacks, conflicts, and times when entire civilizations seemed to fade into obscurity. But life, in its tenacious beauty, always found a way to bloom again. In the Sahel region, where the Sahara Desert begins, there was the kingdom of Kanem-Bornu, with its capital at N'Djamena. This empire thrived on trade, particularly in gold, ivory, and slaves. Despite its vast size and wealth, the kingdom of Kanem-Bornu would face challenges due to internal conflicts and the trans-Saharan trade networks, which would lead to its decline by the late 19th century. Further south, the kingdom of Oyo, with its warrior kings and expansive domain, dominated the western Sudan. Known for its fierce warriors and complex political structure, Oyo would also experience internal divisions that would contribute to its decline. And then there were the city-states of the Swahili coast, like Kilwa and Sofala, whose fortunes were tied to the Indian Ocean trade. As trade patterns shifted, these city-states, once centers of immense wealth, would see their importance diminish. While some kingdoms fell, others rose. South of the Sahara, the Kingdom of Benin, located in what is today Nigeria, flourished. Renowned for its bronze casting and skilled craftsmanship, Benin created magnificent works of art depicting scenes from daily life and royal ceremonies. However, by the late 19th century, the kingdom would be conquered by the British, marking a significant turning point in its history. Nubia is home to the Kingdom of Kush and the city of Meroe, both of which have become super popular lately. And with good reason, because Nubia has been underrepresented in history for far too long. So, if you haven't heard much about Nubia before, buckle up, because we've got a lot to explore together. When most people think of ancient African jewelry, the first thing that comes to mind is the gold of the Dogon people. Those fantastically intricate pieces worn by nobles and priests. But Nubian jewelry was just as dazzling, taking on its own distinct style during the Kingdom of Kush. These jewels weren't just beautiful baubles meant to adorn the body or signify wealth. They were imbued with deep meaning, acting as tangible representations of the invisible forces that shaped life. This concept of imbuing objects with spiritual significance is called animism, and it is a key aspect of understanding how people in ancient Nubia viewed their jewelry. To the Nubians, jewelry wasn't just an accessory. It was a language that whispered stories of identity, status, and belief. Each piece was a silent testament to its wearer's connection to the divine, a tangible representation of intangible concepts like protection, fertility, and ancestral lineage. In fact, the very materials used in jewelry making held special significance. Gold, highly valued by many ancient cultures, symbolized wealth, power, and immortality in Nubia. Its resistance to corrosion and lusterless shine made it the ideal material for crafting pieces, destined to last for generations. Gold became a vessel for expressing profound beliefs and identities. One recurring motif in Nubian jewelry is the ankh, an ancient Egyptian symbol of life. Its presence signifies Nubia's historical ties to Egypt and its shared cultural heritage. The ankh represented more than just longevity. It encapsulated the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth, a central tenet of ancient Egyptian religion. However, alongside Egyptian-inspired designs, there emerged distinctly Nubian motifs. Spirals reminiscent of the eternal desert winds, crescents echoing the sliver of the moon over the Nile, and clusters of circles symbolizing the life-giving floods. These designs weren't mere decorative elements, they were visual prayers, each curve and circle resonating with the Nubian understanding of the world. For the Nubians, the process of creating jewelry was a sacred act. Before hammering the metal, some artisans whispered invocations, calling upon the gods for blessings. These invocations, though often hidden from view, were a vital part of the piece. They transformed inert gold into a conduit between the physical and the spiritual realms. This fusion of craftsmanship and spirituality imbued each piece with a unique power. It was uncommon for inscriptions to be pressed into the gold, where only the wearer and the divine might see them. These invisible prayers made every item more than mere wealth, elevating it to a bridge between the mortal and the eternal. But it wasn't just the design and creation process that held significance. The very act of wearing jewelry was a statement. For instance, The towering collars favored by priests and queens were more than just opulent accessories. They were visible declarations of rank and power. Meanwhile, simpler charms worn by everyday women were no less meaningful. They served as tangible reminders of hopes and worries, safeguarding their children or ensuring the fertility of their fields. In Nubia, jewelry wasn't just an adornment. It was a form of identity. It spoke volumes without uttering a word, communicating to all who saw it the wearer's social standing, personal beliefs and aspirations. The language of gold and precious stones was universally understood, transcending social boundaries. The simplest of folk could express their devotion to the gods or their ancestral pride alongside royalty. Let's dive deeper into the various types of jewelry worn by different members of society. Take the royal women of Nubia, such as Queen Amanirenas, who famously led an army against the Roman Empire. They would have worn elaborate gold collars that reached almost shoulder height, symbolizing their supreme authority. These collars weren't just decorative. They were a declaration of power, setting the queen apart from her subjects. Below the collar, they might have adorned themselves with delicate gold chains, perhaps bearing pendants in the shape of ankhs or other protective symbols. Their headdresses would have been no less spectacular, featuring tall, intricately designed gold ornaments that served both as diadems and a means of protecting their elaborate wigs from the harsh desert sun. Moving away from the royalty, let's look at the attire of a commoner. Picture a Nubian woman dressed in a flowing linen dress, her dark skin contrasting with the vibrant colors of her garment. Around her neck, she wears a simple gold amulet, a small circle pendant suspended from a thin chain. This amulet isn't just a pretty bauble. It's a charm believed to ward off evil spirits and ensure the safety of her family. On her arms, she might wear a pair of gold bangles, each one a silent prayer for health and prosperity. Even the men of Nubia wore their fair share of gold, adorning themselves with bracelets and necklaces that symbolized their masculinity and strength. During the Kingdom of Kush, men often sported thick gold bracelets, sometimes inscribed with protective symbols or the names of their ancestors. These bracelets served as a tangible link to their heritage, a reminder of the generations that came before them. When I picture the Nubians wearing these golden ornaments, I don't just see shiny metal glinting in the sunlight. I see a community deeply connected to its culture, history, and faith. I see their jewelry as a silent chorus, each piece harmonizing with the others to create a symphony of identity. And when we take the time to understand the language of their adornments, we tune into a frequency that resonates with the very essence of Nubian life. Nubia was never merely a land of gold. It was a land where gold sang the stories of an enduring people. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a like and subscribe for more Lost Kingdoms episodes every Wednesday. Don't forget to join our community on a platform to get early access to our videos and support us directly. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright, let's talk about jewelry now. Specifically about patterns on Nubian jewelry. You know, I've been thinking lately how those patterns, they weren't just decoration. Nah, they were more than that. They were echoes of memory across generations. Each time a Nubian artisan made a piece of jewelry, they repeated certain lines and curves, certain shapes that had been in use for hundreds of years before them. It's like every design was a thread stitched through time, connecting what came before to what was happening right now. So when a queen wore a spiral bracelet on her arm, she was echoing a bracelet that maybe her grandmother or great-great-grandmother was buried with 1,000 years ago. In fact, When archaeologists find jewelry in Nubian tombs, they can usually tell which generation made it based on the pattern alone. And that wasn't lost on the people of Kush. They knew that each motif had a history stretching back into the mists of time. When a girl received a palm frond pendant from her mother, she knew that frond had swayed in the desert wind thousands of years before. When a man hammered out a ring of tiny golden studs, he was replicating patterns set by his ancestors, who gazed up at the same stars in the same night sky. You see, some of these patterns were inspired directly by the natural world around them. The rolling waves of the Nile were probably the most common motif, appearing on everything from bracelets to earrings to rings. And the reason for that? Well, the Nile was life itself for the people of Nubia. Without the river, there would be no prosperity, no food, no fertile fields. So, the Nile's repeating curves echoed the rhythm of life itself, a reminder that just like the river, life ebbed and flowed, always moving forward, never staying still. The palm fronds were another popular motif. These graceful arcs symbolized not only the soothing sway of the desert trees, but also the cycle of growth and renewal. After all, the date palms bore fruit twice a year, a tangible reminder of rebirth. Even the stars found their way onto Nubian jewelry, a dotted ring of tiny golden studs scattered like starlight on black enamel. This was especially popular among the women of Nubia, who often wore these rings on their fingers or toes. The pattern spoke of the vastness of the desert night, where the sky blazed with brilliance in the absence of any other light. And it's important to remember that trade carried these designs far beyond Nubia's borders. Along major trade routes, Nubian merchants plied their wares alongside those from Egypt, Greece, and Arabia. That meant Nubian patterns could end up on jewelry made by Egyptian artisans, featuring Egyptian lotus flowers, or on pendants crafted by Greek or Roman silversmiths, showcasing Mediterranean vines and Arabic motifs. And while these borrowed designs were often more popular, the artisans of Kush managed to keep their unique voice. They took outside ideas and bent them to their own rhythm, weaving foreign elements into Nubian patterns. So even when a design was inspired by another culture, the final product always spoke first in the language of Nubia. Some patterns, though, remained uniquely Nubian, like the spiral, which may have been inspired by the river or perhaps by the shape of a woman's body or the movement of a dancer. Spirals appear on everything from bracelets to anklets to rings. Sometimes they are delicate and elongated, sometimes bold and blunt, but always they convey a sense of movement, of life unfolding in a continuous flow. Then there are the geometric patterns, often composed of sharp angles and bold lines. These designs represent the strength and resilience of the Nubian people. After all, they had to be strong and resilient to survive in a harsh environment. So these patterns were a tangible reminder of their ancestors' endurance in the face of adversity. They also reflected the geometry of their built environment, things like the angles of their houses or the arches of their doorways. Now, what is really fascinating about these geometric patterns is that they also show up on archaeological sites from other cultures. For example, in the cave paintings of Tassili Naja in the Sahara, we can see similar geometric patterns. And I think that points to a shared cultural heritage among the people of the region, a connection that transcended any differences in language or religion. Nubian jewelry was more than just an accessory. It was a conversation between the past and the present, a dialogue between tradition and change. Each piece of jewelry was a link in a chain of continuity, connecting the living to the dead, the old to the new. Children often inherited jewelry from their mothers, not just as treasure, but as guidance. A necklace passed down carried not just gold, but also the stories of their endurance. How their family survived droughts, wars, journeys, the loss of their homeland, the stories that had shaped who they were, to where it was to step into a legacy already in motion. Over the centuries, these patterns evolved and grew more elaborate, but beneath every new flourish remained the same message. Life is a circle, wealth is a responsibility, and beauty is a sacred duty. And the patterns on Nubian jewelry served as a constant reminder of that. But it wasn't just the patterns themselves that held meaning. The materials used in making jewelry also had significance. Gold, of course, was the most precious metal, a symbol of wealth and power. But silver, too, had its place, representing the cool waters of the Nile or the shimmer of moonlight on the desert sands. And then there was ivory, often carved with intricate designs that added another layer of meaning to the jewelry. You see, for the Nubians, these materials weren't just commodities, they were elements of the world around them, imbued with their own unique energies and powers. Gold, linked to the sun, was associated with life and renewal. Silver, connected to the moon, symbolized the mysteries of the night. Ivory, drawn from the earth, represented the strength and endurance of the land itself. So, when a Nubian king wore a necklace of solid gold, or a queen adorned herself with ivory bangles, they weren't just making a fashion statement, they were participating in a dialogue with the forces of nature, acknowledging the role these elements played in their lives and affirming their place within the grand cycle of existence. But ultimately, it was the craftsmanship that truly elevated Nubian jewelry to an art form. The techniques used by Nubian artisans were not just practical, they were creative, expressing the beauty and complexity of the world in every curve and angle. The lost wax method used for casting gold was a testament to their skill and precision. The filigree work, where delicate threads of gold were twisted and intertwined, showcased their mastery of metal. And the enamel work, where vibrant colors were fused to the metal surface, demonstrated their ability to transform ordinary materials into something extraordinary. But what makes Nubian jewelry truly remarkable is the way these techniques were applied to the patterns and motifs. The way a spiral was hammered out or a geometric design was etched. Each stroke was infused with meaning. Each curve resonated with tradition. For the Nubian artisans, jewelry making was more than just a craft. It was a way of preserving their cultural heritage, a means of communicating with their ancestors, and a celebration of the natural world that surrounded them. In a world where empires rise and fall and traditions fade with time, Nubian jewelry stands as a testament to the enduring human spirit. It's a reminder that even in the harshest environments, life finds a way to flourish, that even in the face of adversity, beauty and resilience can endure. As I conclude this exploration of Nubian jewelry, I'm filled with a profound sense of admiration for the people of Nubia, their ability to find beauty in the midst of hardship, their skill in transforming raw materials into exquisite works of art, and their deep connection to their cultural heritage are truly inspiring. Through their jewelry, they've left us with a legacy that transcends time, a legacy that speaks to the universal human experience. As I reflect on the stories and symbolism embedded in each piece, I'm reminded of the power of human creativity and the enduring strength of cultural traditions. Nubia, an ancient kingdom nestled along the Nile River, had a profound reverence for gold. This wasn't merely due to its rarity or economic value, but because they saw gold as the very flesh of the gods. Enduring, untarnished, and radiant like the sun, gold to them wasn't just a precious metal, it was a tangible link to the divine. The process of shaping gold was considered a sacred act. Goldsmiths, often referred to as metalworkers, were highly respected, sometimes even deified. Before starting their work, they would often whisper small prayers, asking for steady hands and protection from the intense heat. Their tools were simple: hammers, chisels, and molds, passed down through generations. But the work itself was anything but ordinary. Every strike of the hammer, every chip of the chisel, every curve of the mold was infused with intention. The goldsmith wasn't just a craftsman. He was a conduit between the earthly and the divine, translating the essence of the gods into tangible form. The reverence for gold permeated every aspect of Nubian life, from the common folk to the royal elite. Commoners wore jewelry not just for personal adornment, but as talismans for luck and protection. The pieces weren't mere accessories. They were silent guardians of the soul, whispering prayers to the gods on behalf of their wearers. For instance, amulets in the shape of falcons, ankhs or scarabs were believed to ward off evil spirits, providing comfort and security in a world filled with uncertainty. These symbols weren't arbitrary choices. They represented aspects of the divine, offering a tangible connection to higher powers. The falcon, associated with the sky god Horus, symbolized vision and protection. The ankh, signifying life and rebirth, was a reminder of the cyclical nature of existence. And the scarab, emblematic of the sun god Ra, brought the life-giving rays of the sun to its wearer. The act of wearing these amulets wasn't passive. It was an everyday ritual. Putting on a necklace or bracelet was a moment of communion with the divine, a silent plea for assistance or gratitude for blessings received. Men entering into battle or embarking on journeys would often kiss rings etched with protective prayers, imbuing them with the full force of their devotion. In these moments, the jewelry didn't just sit on the body, it became an extension of the individual's faith. It was a tangible manifestation of their hopes, fears, and beliefs, serving as a link between the human and the godly. The gold, with its divine origins, served as a conduit, channeling the wearer's intentions into the realm of the gods. But the spiritual significance of gold extended far beyond personal adornment. It played a pivotal role in ceremonies marking rites of passage, solidifying social bonds and paying homage to the gods. During weddings, gold wasn't just a symbol of wealth or status. It was a testament to the sacred union between two individuals. Gold jewelry, often passed down through generations, became intertwined with family histories, carrying within it the stories of multiple lives lived. Birth, coming of age, marriage, and even death were all moments when gold played a crucial role. It wasn't merely a metal. It was a silent witness to the human experience, reflecting the joys, sorrows, and rituals that defined life in Nubia. In Nubian society, the spiritual use of gold was most evident in the context of royalty. For queens and kings, golden crowns weren't just a symbol of authority. They were tangible representations of their divine right to rule. These crowns, often adorned with precious stones and intricate designs, were seen as gifts from the gods, bestowing upon the wearer the power and responsibility to act as intermediaries between the divine and the earthly realms. The act of placing the crown upon one's head was more than a formality. It was a ritual of transformation, a moment when the ordinary person was elevated to the status of a god. Gold wasn't just relegated to the headgear of the living. It also played a significant role in the burial practices of the Nubians. When a loved one passed away, they were often buried with gold ornaments, not out of vanity, but as offerings to guide the soul's journey into the afterlife. The deceased were believed to require sustenance for their passage, and what better offering than the very substance of the gods themselves? Placing gold on or in a body ensured the soul's safe passage through the underworld, protecting it from malevolent spirits or obstacles that might hinder its progress. It was a final act of love and devotion, a way to ensure that the departed's final journey was as comfortable and secure as possible. The Nubians weren't alone in their reverence for gold. Many ancient cultures around the world held gold in high regard. The Egyptians, known for their lavish use of gold in jewelry and art, believed it was a symbol of immortality. The Greeks associated gold with the sun god Apollo, linking it to wisdom, healing, and enlightenment. And the Romans used gold not just as a currency, but as a way to glorify their emperors, casting them as larger-than-life figures through statues and coins. However, the Nubian perspective on gold was unique. While other cultures may have focused on its beauty, rarity, or value, the Nubians saw gold as the embodiment of the divine. This perspective wasn't just a matter of belief, it was a way of life. It shaped their art, their religion, their economy, and their very understanding of the world. For the Nubians, gold wasn't just a precious metal, it was the flesh of the gods, and to work with it was to participate in the divine. The Nubian people's deep connection to gold serves as a reminder of the multifaceted relationship humans have with precious materials. Beyond their monetary value or aesthetic appeal, these materials can hold cultural, religious, and historical significance, shaping our beliefs, rituals, and artistic expression. Understanding and respecting these diverse perspectives enriches our appreciation for the role these materials play in our world. In Nubia, queens wore gold, but it was heavy to wear. In Nubia, the wife of a king wasn't just a consort. She was a mother of dynasties, a guardian of ritual, and in some cases, a ruler in her own right. So what did a queen's day look like? Let's find out. To live as a queen was to walk a path of honor and burden, clothed in gold, yet bound to responsibility. Her Majesty woke before the sun, not because an early start was expected of her, but because her day had already begun before she stirred. Servants, both male and female, were up and about, preparing for the rituals and ceremonies that would mark the hours ahead. Some would tend to the sacred animals kept within the palace walls, ensuring they were ready to participate in the day's events. Others would clean and prepare the chariots and horses, symbols of the kingdom's wealth and power that would later carry her to places of worship or the royal court. And still others would begin the long process of adorning the queen, bathing her in scented Nubian oils and braiding her hair with beads of gold, and then she would be dressed in fine linen that caught the sun's glow. And here, a queen's day truly began. Picture this: sunlight streaming through intricately carved windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The queen sits poised, patiently waiting for her attendants to complete their task. They move with practiced grace, their hands deftly weaving tails on her head using tiny golden threads. Each strand is a miniature work of art, a design element in a larger composition that tells stories of the kingdom or the divine. They adorn her with scarabs, symbols of rebirth and resurrection, and with cobras signifying protection and power. These aren't just ornaments, they are talismans of authority, each holding a piece of Nubian culture and history. Then the queen rises, and as she does, the room seems to fall silent. The gentle murmur of activity replaced by a hushed reverence. The queen moves now, her steps measured, her posture regal, reflecting the weight of her status. She is a living embodiment of Nubia's strength and stability, her appearance reflecting the order and prosperity of the kingdom. This was no leisurely affair. It was a display of power and preparation for a day filled with duties. Once adorned, The queen would likely sit for hours, receiving visitors or overseeing administrative tasks. Her role wasn't solely ceremonial. In many Nubian courts, queens played a significant role in religious and political affairs. They might consult oracles, interpret dreams, or read the signs and omens of the natural world. They could be teachers, passing down history and culture to younger members of the royal family. In some kingdoms, the queen's influence extended beyond the palace walls. Queen Amenarines, for instance, ruled alongside her husband over the kingdom of Kush. When her husband went to war, she took charge of the kingdom and led armies into battle against the Egyptians. That kind of strength and involvement was a big part of being a queen in Nubia. But amidst the responsibilities, there was beauty too. A queen's day often included visits to the temples, where she'd offer prayers and gifts to the gods. This wasn't just a matter of faith, but also a way to maintain the cosmic balance that ensured the kingdom's prosperity. Here, the queen makes offerings to the gods, placing baskets of grain and fruit on an altar. It's a scene of deep devotion. Sunlight streams through the temple's open roof, bathing the scene in a golden glow. The queen, resplendent in her finery, reaches out to touch a basket filled with ripe figs. Her attendants stand nearby, their presence a silent testament to the importance of this ritual. Behind them, the murals on the temple walls depict scenes from myths and legends, tales that have echoed through generations, stories that have shaped Nubian culture. The very air within these four walls is thick with the scent of incense, mingling with the sweet aroma of figs, creating a sensory experience that is as spiritual as it is olfactory. It's a moment of quiet grandeur, a queen in communion with her gods and her people. But a queen's role went beyond the spiritual. She was also a mother, responsible for producing heirs to the throne and carrying on the dynasty. In many ways, her fertility was a matter of state. Ceremonies and rituals related to fertility were common, with offerings made in her name to ensure the continuation of the royal line and the prosperity of the kingdom. During these rituals, women might chant ancient hymns, their voices echoing with the power of generations past. The queen, seated on a raised dais, listens with serene focus, her presence lending solemnity to the proceedings. The rhythmic splashing of water from a nearby fountain provides a calming backdrop, harmonizing with the chants and adding a soothing element to the ceremony. The air is thick with anticipation as the community comes together, united in their hopes for the future, their fates intertwined with the queen's ability to bear children. Yet, despite the grandeur of her position, a queen's life wasn't without its challenges. She walked a tightrope between tradition and change, between the expectations of her people and the ambitions of her heart. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the atmosphere in the palace courtyard shifted, the earlier sense of serenity giving way to a controlled urgency. The queen, seated on a raised platform, now faces a delegation of officials and dignitaries. They stand before her, their postures varying from the rigid formality of ambassadors to the respectful attentiveness of advisors. The queen, with an air of quiet command, listens intently. Her face, though partially veiled, reflects a thoughtful seriousness, betraying the weight of the matters at hand. This is more than a social call. Negotiations are underway, alliances are discussed, and decisions made here will have echoes throughout the kingdom. The queen, though not the sole ruler, is a vital voice in shaping the future of Nubia. The scene shifts now to the royal dining hall. Sunlight streams through high windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The queen sits poised on a raised dais, her attendants fanning her gently to ward off the heat. On the table before her, a feast fit for royalty is laid out, brimming with roasted meats, fresh fruits and loaves of bread, this isn't just a meal. It's a display of the kingdom's bounty, a testament to the prosperity that extends from the king and queen to their subjects. Yet there's more to this scene than meets the eye. For as the queen partakes in the feast, her gaze is distant, her mind likely far from the table. As she eats, she observes, perhaps weighing the merits of a new proposal, strategizing about an upcoming festival, or contemplating the best way to support her husband in his endeavors. A queen's life isn't just about rituals and pageantry. It's a blend of duty and diplomacy, of faith and foresight. Every action, every decision has implications that reach far and wide. The queen, even in the midst of a simple meal, is very much aware of this. The day wanes. The sun begins its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and red. The queen, now in the sanctuary of her chambers, pauses to admire the view. Through a window, she looks out at the kingdom she helps to oversee, a realm touched by the gold of Nubia's famed sunsets. This isn't a moment of pure leisure. Even here, in the intimacy of her personal space, she is mindful of her responsibilities. The well-being of her people, the security of her dynasty, the prosperity of her kingdom, all are on her mind. As darkness falls, the sounds of the evening settle over the kingdom. Inside the queen's chambers, a different kind of activity starts to unfold. Incense burners are filled, releasing fragrant plumes into the air. Musicians tuned their harps, ready to fill the space with soft melodies. Amidst this evening calm, the queen prepares for rest, but not before reflecting on the day gone by and strategizing for the one ahead. Her reign, though unseen by most, is a vital force in keeping Nubia strong. Nubian queens, they were more than just royalty. They were like priestesses, diplomats and leaders, all rolled into one. And let me tell you, they were some of the most powerful women out there. When it came to celebrations, these queens were the ones to lead the way. Like imagine a massive harvest festival in the heart of Nubia. People from all over come together. Farmers, traders, artisans, all celebrating the bounty of the land. Music is playing, drums are pounding, everyone's dancing. And at the center of it all is the queen. She's not just watching, she's participating. She's joining in the dances, laughing, enjoying the festivities. But she's also leading the religious rituals, pouring out offerings to the gods of the Nile, making sure that everyone stays safe and prosperous. Or think about those times when the priests wanted to connect with the gods. They would call out to the deities, but it was the queen who acted as the intermediary. She was the one who built the bridges between the spiritual and the earthly, ensuring that the prayers of the people reached the heavens. But it wasn't just about ceremonies. Queens had a real say in how the kingdom was run. Even though they weren't on the throne, their voices carried a lot of weight. For instance, if there was a war going on, the king might go off to battle, leaving the queen to take charge back home. She would manage the kingdom in his absence, making sure everything ran smoothly while he was away fighting. And when kings went to visit other kingdoms, especially Egypt, they didn't go alone. They took their wives along. The queen's presence showed that the king wasn't just powerful, but also that he was well supported and protected by the divine, since she was often seen as a link between the king and the gods. So when they visited other kingdoms, everyone knew that if you messed with the king, you also messed with his wife, the embodiment of the kingdom itself. And if you disrespected her, you were essentially challenging the gods, which no one wanted to do. But here's the thing. Nubian queens weren't just figureheads or symbols. They were active participants in politics. They advised kings, settled disputes, and negotiated treaties. It was common for kings to ask their wives for advice, especially when it came to matters involving other kingdoms. The queen's perspective was valued because she had a unique position. She could see things from different angles and make balanced decisions that benefited the kingdom. And when it came to solving arguments among the royal family, it was the queen who was often called in to mediate. Her role was to bring everyone together, to listen to each side of the story, and then come up with a solution that kept the peace. Plus, she could also punish people who misbehaved, whether it was members of the royal family or anyone else in the kingdom. If someone stepped out of line, the queen had the authority to hold them accountable and make sure they followed the rules. And let's not forget about the times when the Nubians had to send representatives to other kingdoms. They didn't send just any ordinary guy. They sent their queen. Being an envoy wasn't easy. It required skills in diplomacy and the ability to represent the kingdom with grace and intelligence. And Nubian queens were more than up to the task. Here's a scenario that might have played out. Imagine a Nubian queen preparing to meet with the Pharaoh of Egypt. She would put on her finest clothes, adorned with intricate patterns and precious metals. Her headdress would be a masterpiece, sparkling with jewels that catch the sunlight. Maybe she's wearing a necklace passed down from her ancestors, each gem telling stories of past victories and alliances. As she enters the court, everyone's eyes turn to her, acknowledging her status and importance. The queen, carrying herself with confidence, moves with purpose. Her steps are measured, her gaze steady, projecting an image of strength and control. When she speaks, her words are carefully chosen, reflecting the values and interests of her kingdom. Whether it's discussing trade agreements, forming alliances, or settling disputes, she negotiates with skill and finesse. The queen's presence alone carries weight, commanding respect and attention. Her mere silence can speak volumes, conveying determination and resolve. When she signs treaties or exchanges gifts, it's a testament to the enduring legacy of Nubia. These interactions shape not just her own kingdom's fate, but also influence the course of neighboring civilizations. And the coolest part, she's not just a figurehead. She actively participates in shaping the destiny of Nubia, proving that behind the gold jewelry and fine clothes beats the heart of a true leader. Nubia, Kush, they were not just names on a map. They were worlds unto themselves. Here's what I want you to do. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself in ancient Nubia. You're strolling through the bustling markets, vibrant with color and sound. Merchants display their wares, spices from distant lands, textiles with intricate designs, and gold shimmering in the sunlight. Suddenly, a group of musicians approaches, their melodies echoing tales of courage, love, and the mysteries of the Nile. You find yourself captivated by the rhythm and the lyrics, each note resonating with the pulse of this ancient civilization. What did they write about? What kind of stories did they share? Let us dive into the realm of ancient Nubia and explore the fascinating world of their literature and storytelling. Nubian bards, poets, and scribes left us a wealth of material that offers a glimpse into their beliefs, values, and daily life. One significant piece comes from the kingdom of Kush, known as the Black Pharaohs. The earliest accounts of their culture date back to the 8th century BC, during the reign of Kashta's dynasty. These texts include the famous Petasiris Funerary, which provides insights into their religious beliefs and the journey of the soul after death. The kingdom of Napata, succeeding the Kushite Empire, flourished from the 7th century BC to the 4th century BC. During this era, Nubia produced Pi, one of its most prominent rulers. His victory stele, inscribed with hieroglyphic script, recounts his military campaigns and establishment of the 25th dynasty of Egypt. The Meroitic period marked the kingdom of Kush's final chapter. lasting from the 4th century BC to the 4th century AD. This era witnessed the rise of the kingdom's golden age, with Queen Amanirenas as its most renowned ruler. Her military prowess and resistance against Rome are immortalized in accounts like the Rosetta Stone bilingual inscription, providing a window into her reign. During Napata and Mero, Nubia also developed its own unique script, Meroitic script, which remained undeciphered until recently. It was used extensively on stele, pottery, and other artifacts reflecting daily life, trade, and administration in ancient Nubia. The discovery of these inscriptions continues to unlock secrets of Nubian history, shedding light on their accomplishments and challenges in the ancient world. Nubian queens. They ruled over their people and often over their own family members. They balanced tradition and change, power and responsibility, all while keeping an eye on that treacherous path to Meroe. While we often think of ancient Egyptian queens as those great builders like Hatshepsut or powerful women who seized the throne like Cleopatra, the queens of Nubia present us with yet another side of female leadership in the ancient world. The Nubian queens who came after him didn't always take the throne themselves, but they did rule in various ways. They were priestesses, regents for young pharaohs, and even viceroys governing parts of Egypt on behalf of the royal court in Thebes. However, they were also mothers, daughters, and sisters. Within the palace walls, their family ties shaped succession and stability. A queen's son might inherit the throne, her daughter might be married into another powerful household, or her nephew might become a general. Family life was not just private, it was a matter of politics and survival. But palace life also carried dangers. Poisoned cups, whispers of betrayal, and rivalries between heirs could unravel a dynasty. Queens walked a delicate line, protecting their children while guiding the kingdom through storms. Their wisdom often determined whether their families thrived or fell into chaos. During the day, they would receive ambassadors from neighboring countries and sometimes from Egypt. What kind of gifts did the Nubian queens get? Well, everything from ivory to incense. Some rulers had to pay tribute to the Queen Mother, and when the Queen Mother died, she was buried in a pyramid. Now, let me tell you something about these pyramids. They weren't as big as the ones where pharaohs were buried, but they were pretty impressive nonetheless. The burial chamber was like a giant treasure chest filled with all sorts of valuable items. You know, things like golden ornaments, rings made of precious stones, and even statues of the queen made out of pure gold. So back to our story. Once the queen was laid to rest, the royal family gathered together for a ritual known as the opening of the mouth. It was a way to welcome the queen into the afterlife. During this ceremony, each member of the royal family had a special role. The king took a ceremonial stick and touched it to different parts of the statue, kind of like giving it a wake-up call. Then the queen's children stepped forward. They sprinkled the statue with water, symbolizing the tears of joy on that day. The queen's mother played a significant role too, offering up prayers and reading ancient texts that held powerful spells. It was a grand affair, meant to ensure the queen's journey into the afterlife was as smooth as possible. Imagine the scene. A grand hall filled with flickering torches, the murmur of prayers, and the clink of ceremonial objects echoing through the chambers. It must have been a deeply emotional moment for everyone there. After all, they were saying goodbye to their beloved queen, but also ensuring she would find peace in the next realm. In the quiet of the evenings, away from ceremonies and councils, queens might sit with their families by flickering lamps, telling stories of the gods and ancestors. These stories, passed down across generations, became part of Nubia's memory, tales of rivers, lions, and the resilience of their people. Maybe the queen's son sat at her feet, his eyes wide with wonder, listening intently to each word. As she spoke, her daughter, adorned in colorful garments, helped serve her father and the other nobles with traditional foods and drinks. The queen's sister, perhaps a bit older and wiser, joined in the storytelling, adding her own memories and insights to create a tapestry of family and history. The flickering lamplight danced across their faces, highlighting the bonds that connected them not just as family, but as custodians of their cultural heritage. Can you picture the scene? A cozy, intimate setting filled with laughter, shared memories, and the warmth of family togetherness. Now, let's shift our focus to the royal courts of Nubia. Picture this, a bustling center of activity where ambassadors from distant lands arrived bearing gifts of ivory, linen, and incense. Their presence added a touch of exotic charm to the courtly life. Can you imagine strolling through the courtyards, vibrant with colors and sounds? You'd see officials going about their tasks, merchants showcasing their wares, and maybe even catch a glimpse of nobles enjoying music and poetry recitals. It was a place where cultures converged and diplomacy was a dance of words and gifts. Yet, amidst this grandeur, there were whispers, subtle signs of tension and rivalry that hinted at the complexities of courtly life. Jealousy simmered beneath the surface, threatening to erupt into open conflict. Amidst the opulence and intrigue, alliances were forged and broken, shaping the destinies of individuals and kingdoms alike. Picture this, you're standing before a majestic temple, its walls adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes from their rich mythology. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of incense as priests chant ancient hymns, their voices echoing through the vast space. You can almost feel the presence of the gods they worship, their eyes seeming to follow your every move. The queen, resplendent in her ceremonial robes, enters the temple, her every step laden with purpose and devotion. She takes her place before the altar, and for a moment, the entire world outside this sacred precinct seems to fade away. All eyes are on her as she performs her rituals. Her connection to the divine palpable in the hushed silence that envelops the temple. The queen, with her keen intellect and sharp wit, engages in lively debates with scholars and philosophers, eager to learn and share knowledge. She asks probing questions, her mind as agile as a desert fox, and listens intently to their responses, always seeking deeper understanding. It's a testament to her insatiable curiosity and desire to expand her horizons. As the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the land, you find yourself drawn to the Nile's edge. The gentle lapping of water against the riverbank provides a soothing soundtrack to the day's end. Gazing at the horizon, you witness a breathtaking display of colors as the sky transforms into a canvas of gold, crimson and purple hues. It's a moment of tranquility and reflection, a reminder of nature's timeless beauty. And then you remember the looming threat from Meroe, a constant shadow on the horizon. Its influence spreads like creeping vines, threatening to engulf Nubia's hard-won prosperity. A sense of urgency stirs within you, a call to action to confront this growing menace. You know that the time for complacency is over. Nubia's fate hangs in the balance, and it's up to you to protect it. Nubia, the cradle of civilization along the Nile River, has been home to a multitude of powerful queens throughout history. From the legendary Amenarines, Queen of Kush, to the enigmatic Amenishakato, these women have left an indelible mark on history. Now it's your turn to lead your people towards a brighter future. Your decisions will shape the course of Nubia's destiny. determining whether it will flourish as a beacon of prosperity and power or crumble under the weight of external threats. Will you rise to the challenge and secure Nubia's place among the great empires of the ancient world? Only time will tell. And so, our journey with the Nubian goldsmiths and queens draws to a close. From the glowing furnaces where metal met flame, to the thrones where power met ritual, we have wandered through a land shaped by both fire and spirit. We've walked barefoot on the sands of time, feeling the echoes of ancient steps all around us. We have seen how the simplest act, hammering a sheet of gold, telling a child a story, wearing a bracelet of divine pattern, could carry the weight of kingdoms. In Nubia, art was never just decoration. It was memory, power, and prayer woven into every glittering surface. Each amulet a whispered prayer, each bracelet a shield against evil, each ring a seal of authority. They took the raw materials of earth and fire and transformed them into expressions of faith, of lineage, and of rule. And then there were the queens, the women who held court in these very halls, their voices echoing with the wisdom of ages past. Queens like Amonarina's, her spirit undaunted, her gaze unwavering. A warrior queen who knew when to strike and when to seek counsel from the gods. Her story is a testament to the strength that comes from knowing when to be gentle and when to be fierce, much like the desert that cradled her, vast and unforgiving, yet nurturing life in its bosom. Or Queen Shanaktakit, her name meaning the sweet one, yet her reign was marked by the keen understanding of the burdens borne by her people. She, too, was a warrior, but her battles were fought with diplomacy and with acts of mercy. She was the embodiment of Nubia's paradoxical nature, a land where war was understood, yet peace was cherished. And as we wander through these halls now bathed in the soft glow of sunset, let us listen closely. Can you hear the whispers of their laughter, the murmur of their prayers? Can you feel the weight of their crowns upon your head, the warmth of their gazes upon your skin? Let us take a moment to bask in the fading light, to let the Nubian queens walk with us just for a while longer. They, too, were once young girls, dreaming of adventures beyond the horizon, just like you and me. They played in the shadow of the pyramids, their laughter echoing between the stones, their games mirroring the eternal dance of the desert sun. Oh, how I wish we could capture this moment, hold it in our hands like a precious jewel. But time, like the Nile, flows ever forward. So we must carry these memories instead. Let them be our compass, guiding us through the darkness of ignorance towards the light of understanding. For the Nubian legacy is not just about gold and glory. It's about the quiet strength of everyday life, the love of a mother for her child, the bond of sisters, the wisdom of elders. It's about the rhythm of the Nile, the heartbeat of the desert, the very essence of Nubia. So, as we leave this place, let us take its spirit with us, the way a sculptor captures the fleeting smile of a subject, or a poet strings words like beads on a necklace of sound. Let us remember the lessons of courage, resilience, and grace that the Nubian queens and goldsmiths taught us so patiently. For they, too, were once students of life, learning as we all do, striving to leave their mark on the world, and in doing so, enriching our understanding of it. The desert winds may blow fiercely, but the roots of these great civilizations run deep, deeper than the shifting sands, anchored by the eternal truths of Nubia. And perhaps that is the greatest treasure we can take home. The knowledge that true wealth is not measured in gold, but in the richness of the human spirit.